You may be wondering, where's R1 at? You don't gotta worry about him. I put him in his place. Any of you who didn't know, I'm his alter ego. How can you tell? I got glasses on, he don't. Yeah, that's the main difference. I don't got a name yet because, you know, he didn't really think of one yet, but today I'm gonna be doing the review of 007 First Light, aka the VALENT1NE meter. Now, this is gonna be a series where I rate games and films, either games that just came out, games that came out maybe like a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm still gonna rate them, and new films. Mostly gonna be those two things. There might be exceptions here and there, but it's gonna be mostly games and then, you know, a little bit of films here and there. We're gonna be rating them out of 100. I'm not just gonna like sit here and be like, oh my god, this is great, that's it, 60 out of 100. No, I'm gonna say why I think that's that, and I have like a detailed like list. Now we gotta hurry up before, you know, the real R1 comes back. Today we're gonna talk about 007 First Light, which was released May 27th, 2026. And it was developed and published by IO Games. I figured, this was the first YouTube series we've done. It would only make sense if I do my first VALENT1NE meter on it as well. If you don't know what 007 First Light is, it's a video game based on the James Bond franchise, and it tells an original narrative inspired by the novels, obviously. And this time, compared to the films, I'm pretty sure we're telling the story of a younger Bond. I'm not sure if every film, you know, has like an older Bond or if there's like a younger Bond in any, like, I've never watched any of the films before, which will give you like a new perspective or like a different perspective on this game, because I feel like a lot of people who rate this game or who have played it in general, they've watched all or like most James Bond films, but I haven't watched a single one. I know nothing about the character before getting into the game, which makes me feel like my opinion would be a bit more interesting, and I won't be like swayed by like film bias or anything like that. Now, the first part of the video is going to be me talking about the game, you know, in general, spoiler free. And then moving on, I'm going to let y'all know like when we're going to get into the spoilers, and then yeah, whatever. Now, I made this like list. Since I said I want to rate it out of 100, I feel like I need some sort of structure, or else it's going to feel like I'm half-assing it, you know, like I'm just, you know, giving a rough estimate. I kind of trimmed it into 4 sections. We got story and character, gameplay and mechanics, atmosphere and presentation, and then we got personal enjoyment. I'm going to go over these 4 for the spoiler-free version, and I'm going to go in detail with all these 4 later on with spoilers, obviously. Now, is the story good? Let's start off with that. I'm going to give you a fast answer. Yes, it is good. I wouldn't say that it's like it's necessarily a story that's very like out there and like mind-blowing. No, but it does well when it comes to just telling, you know, James Bond's story, more so his origin story in this case. Most of the story makes sense, right? There's no like curveballs here and there where like, oh yeah, wait, why is this part of the story again? There's not much of that. Okay, there are a couple of things that I can think of, but again, spoiler free. But overall, I would say it's a good story. I wouldn't say it's very good, but I would say it's a good story. The thing is, there's like perfect, very good, and then good. I would say good is pretty good, right? Yeah, the story sticks with you as well. Now, the characters. I feel like the characters definitely impact your immersion in the game. We got, you know, James Bond as the main character. I think he's a really good protagonist. They showed a lot of character development, showed a lot of depth to him compared to, you know, other protagonists. Like, if I had to compare protagonists, he's not like a self-insert like Ethan Winters. He's not like this stoic figure or like this perfect, you know, person. He just seems like a dude who, you know, he went through that military training, he was in the right place at the right time, and then he got recruited by MI6. I feel like James Bond in this game, he is a pretty good protagonist, because you can see, you know, moving along with the story, you can see how he kind of changes, you know, the external, you know, shit that kind of affects him. You can see how he reacts to that, and, you know, everything else. Again, no spoilers. But yeah, moving on to gameplay and mechanics. Now, the gameplay, I would say, I've seen a couple of people say they don't necessarily like the gameplay and it feels a bit clunky, but I would disagree. I think the hand-to-hand combat is pretty nice. It's pretty smooth, especially if you learn how to parry and then you counter parry. You know, if they're blocking, you gotta grab them, and then you can throw them off a bridge, you can throw them off into the river. It's pretty cool. I feel like the gameplay is pretty intuitive, but one thing I do have to say is, basically in the game you get a watch, right? Or you get multiple items. You get a watch, you get a spy pen, whatever. And you gotta collect things around the map to be able to use that. Let's say for the watch, you gotta collect like batteries around the, you know, the linear map you're in. and then you can't use them until you've collected the right amount of the said batteries. Same thing goes for the pen. For the pen, you need like some sort of like chemicals, like soap or whatever, you gotta collect that. I feel like at some point it does get a bit tedious because, you know, in some areas there's just none of that, and then you kind of have to, you know, just use your fist or your gun or whatever, and then you don't really get to use your, you know, abilities. They're not really abilities, but you know what I mean, as much, because, you know, you're running out of those resources that you need to use them. I feel like a cooldown would be great as well. Like, instead of just collecting those items, collecting them, in hindsight, it is actually pretty cool. But the problem is, it's just sometimes maybe you overuse them and then you got nothing left for the rest of the fight. You really got to think through it whenever you're playing. I don't know if I would prefer a cooldown or not. I've heard a couple of people say cooldowns are cool and everything, but that's just me. Atmosphere presentation. Now, a lot of complaints that I've heard from people are that the graphics aren't as good as, you know, other newer games, and I agree to a degree, but I think the graphics are fine. They're not like, you know, blowing out the water here. They're not, you know, amazing. They're not like eye-opening, they're not jaw-dropping. But I think it's good enough for a great story game with great characters, great gameplay. I think in this day and age of video games, I think the graphics, you know, it can keep up. There's no issue. A lot of people said, oh, it looks like a PS2 game, looks like a PS3 game. Just tell me you've never played a PS2 or PS3 game if you're saying that. That's just incorrect. Now, in terms of like immersion and how real the world feels, like the world building, I think is pretty good. It's realistic to the point where it's like, it feels like this could happen in real life. It feels like this is happening to you, and you're really immersed because they use, you know, they have some sponsors that are in the game, and then it feels like, you know, overall it just feels like you're in the game. And yeah, that's about it. Now, personal enjoyment. Okay, I would give this a great personal enjoyment. I don't really know how much I would enjoy it if I wasn't recording, because obviously you got to think, recording a game and playing the game by yourself is completely different. For me, I think it's almost there where it's almost the same. Sometimes I do enjoy playing a game by myself. I know a bunch of YouTubers that do that, like, you know, Jacksepticeye. I'm pretty sure he said it once. Some games he just wants to play by himself, and then because sometimes you just want to like enjoy it, right? You really want to relish it. But then if you're kind of forcing yourself to be entertaining, it kind of ruins your experience a little bit. For me, it's not really the case. Sometimes I feel that way, but most of the time I don't. Overall, I really enjoyed it. And would I replay it? Probably. At some point in my life, not in the coming days or months maybe, but eventually I will. Maybe if the new sequel comes out, I will replay it, probably. I forgot to like give like an actual score, but yeah, that's gonna be the spoiler-free version of this review. Click away now if you haven't played the game, and you don't want to see spoilers. If you haven't played the game, you want to see spoilers, that's on you. Now let's get into detail. I'm also gonna start scoring now. Now, story characters, let's head back to this. Did the story keep me interested? I would say yes, for the most part. Were the characters memorable? That is, I think, the best thing about this. Especially the side characters. Monroe, Cressida, please bring her back next game. For the short screen time that the characters, you know, were on screen, you really feel like you were actually like friends with them, or you were in the situation with them. I don't know why it feels that way, but it does. I feel like every side character that you meet in this game has some sort of impact on you. Although there are some characters that I personally didn't really care much for. For example, Lenny Kravitz's character, I really didn't really care much for his character, if I'm being completely honest. But overall, you know, there a lot of characters, they really stick with you, you know? You got Monroe and Cressida at the beginning. Obviously, you also got Greenway. Again, Monroe dies pretty early on in the game. I'm pretty sure it was in chapter 3. How many chapters are there? Like 12, I think? And yeah, he doesn't show up ever again, obviously because he's dead. Cressida gets injured as well, and she doesn't show up at all anymore. She does get, you know, mentioned here and there by her father, or by M, or by Moneypenny. And then characters like Greenway, you know, they're with you for the most part of the game. You know, Moneypenny and M as well. But I would say Greenway definitely has one of the most screen time out of, you know, any side character, and it's good, you know, because you know, Lenny James, he's a great actor. I didn't even know he was British until, you know, I played this game. I do think in this case the characters are memorable. Now, did the themes message land? They did as well. You know, the powers of AI, people with a lot of money having a lot of influence, because, you know, Thea was Webb's thing, and Webb is, he's just a rich dude, and he has a huge impact on MI6, which is the British intelligence agency or whatever you call it. And it really puts it in perspective because, you know, in real life there are a lot of billionaires, a lot of multimillionaires that they don't really do good with their money, let's say. They kind of just do whatever they want with it. Now, was the pacing good? Okay, I'll say this. I feel like the pacing from the prologue till Slovakia was perfect. It didn't feel dragged at all, and it didn't feel too rushed. I think that's like the best way to explain it. Where I felt like the pacing was lacking a little bit is when, you know, Bond and Greenway, they arrived in the market. And I feel like I like the general area, but the story and the pacing didn't really keep me that engaged. I kind of just wanted it to be over with and then we could move on to the next chapter, which was then better. But yeah, overall, the pacing of this game is good. It's I do feel like it kind of falls off a little bit after the first 3 chapters and then it climbs back up a bit slower. I do feel like there's like a certain curve when it comes to the pacing, you know, like up and then a bit down and then, you know what I mean? Now, did the ending deliver? Yes. I didn't really like the last boss fight per se, and I feel like the antagonist, the last villain was kind of, I wouldn't say lame. He was just a bit like, why did you bring him back? I feel like they could have introduced somebody else rather than Damien. At the end of the day, I don't really mind it, but I feel like bringing him back as a character was kind of, it feels like they didn't really know what to do with the ending or like who to put in the ending, which I completely get, you know. Overall, I would say the ending delivered. It sets up this game for, you know, a sequel perfectly. Bond gets his, you know, 007 number for the first time in the end, and yeah, it says Bond will return, and that cool outro that I saw. And yeah, now for the score overall, story and characters, out of 25, I think I would give this, oh, this is gonna be a bit hard. Okay, I think I'm gonna give this an 18. I'm gonna adjust it a little bit later, but you know, I think that's pretty good in my books. Now, gameplay mechanics, I think I already covered this mostly. I would give gameplay and mechanics. The gameplay doesn't really change ever. You get newer items to fight with, like you get newer weapons, you get different gadgets and stuff, but overall the game doesn't really evolve as much, which is fine. I think it has a great base gameplay and it doesn't really need that extra spice. I think it's pretty good, but the core gameplay is fun, especially the hand-to-hand combat. Now overall, I'll give it a 17 in gameplay. When it comes to gameplay, I'll give it 17. Atmosphere and presentation, the visual design, as I said, people overhate these graphics. Art direction, you can't really say much about that because the game mainly revolves around you know, real life graphics, whatever. But what I do want to say is the intro is probably one of my favorite intros of any video game I've ever played, and it's really good. I couldn't really show it in the YouTube video because it's copyrighted. Another thing about it, I wish I would have showed you all that too. I shouldn't really care about the copyright, but you know, I think the direction and the song, that really like hit me. I don't know what it was, but it was just really good. World building is pretty nice. What I do want to say is, what I didn't say earlier, is there's a lot of attention to detail, right? You really feel immersed and you really feel like you spend your time in this game. Because again, in the first episode, or the first chapter, when you're going through that training in Malta, the way they like pace that and the way they put so much detail into that was insane. It was amazing. And I wish more games would do that. They didn't do like a 10-second cutscene where like, oh yeah, training's done after a cutscene. No, they put in cutscenes with you and your friends, and then after that cutscene, there's gameplay of that training, and then cutscene gameplay, that kind of like, you know, structure. I think that's amazing because then you actually feel like you've been training for, you know, these whatever how many months. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a drag to go through because of that, you know, cut to a cutscene, cut to a gameplay. It feels really fun. Another part about detail is Bond, Monroe, and Cressida's apartment. The amount of detail in the apartment is actually pretty cool, especially when you come back later in the chapters where, you know, everybody left and Bond is alone. And then they showed everything, like they showed all the details of, you know, his past roommates. You know, it really makes you think about them, you know? All their stuff was kind of scattered around the apartment and you couldn't see any of Bond's stuff. Because, you know, you're just playing as Bond anyway, you don't really need to see that. But it really does hit you. It really does feel like you've lost your friends or whatever. I think they did really well when it comes to that. And the world building, like I said, it feels pretty realistic. It feels pretty, It feels like you were there, kind of. Although I love all the attention to detail, I don't think I can rate this higher than the last, you know, 2 things. I'll give this a 19. Okay, I'll give this a 19. Now, personal enjoyment, I did genuinely enjoy my time. Although, again, I didn't enjoy, what's it called, the desert chapters as much. Overall, I did love it. Would I replay it? Again, those 2 chapters are kind of hindering me to replay it a little bit. But overall, I would replay it, and I would definitely recommend it. And it did leave an impression on me. Now I kind of feel like I want to watch, you know, the James Bond films, and did I want to keep playing? Of course I did. I feel like that's the best part. If you want more of a game after you finished it, that's kind of the whole point, because then they feel more incentivized to, like, you know, make more content, make a sequel, whatever, and then, you know, the player or the fan wants that, so then they get that motivation, let's say, to make that sequel or whatever. Personal enjoyment, I'll give this a 20. Now, if we had to calculate everything together, I don't want to screw up my rating, so let's just use a calculator. I can easily do this in my head, but I'm gonna take this rating thing seriously, y'all. Okay, so in the end, it is a 74 out of 100. I think that's a bit too low. I'm gonna up it a little bit. I'm gonna put some more into I'll put some more into the story. I'll put a 20 out of 25 in the story, and I'll put the personal enjoyment a bit higher too, because I did really enjoy it. I put personal enjoyment at 23. Overall, a 79 out of 100. You know what? I'm gonna give you the 80. Okay, I'm gonna put up the gameplay. I'm gonna put the gameplay to 18. I'm gonna give you that 80. IO Games. I love this game. Now, the final Valentine meter will be 80 out of 100. Mixed would be like middle of the road. Good would be, you know, good. Great would be great. Incredible, masterpiece. Okay, if I had to pick, I would put it in the middle of incredible and great. It's more so leaning towards great instead of incredible. But I'll put this in great. Best moment? The best moment was definitely the time I spent with my friends in the first couple of chapters. The worst moment is when they died. And if I had to put like a 1-sentence review for this game, I would definitely say it's very immersive. It's very immersive, and you're gonna have a lot of fun. Would I play again? Yes, maybe, no. Let's put this at maybe. I'm gonna put this at maybe, because I don't tend to replay a lot of games unless it's Resident Evil. I love replaying those games. But yeah, I'm gonna put this at maybe. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's Valentine meter. I'm sorry if this video is a bit longer than planned. I just this is my first rating, you know, game rating, whatever. I'm still a bit all over the place, so the more games we rate, the more films we rate, it's always gonna get a bit quicker, a bit faster, and yeah. Maybe next time I won't do like a spoiler-free section. I'll just go straight into the spoilers. Thank you everybody for watching. It's been nice, you know. I finally get to record something without, you know, Sar, you know, yelling at me. And yeah, that's gonna be it. What do you think you're doing? Huh? It's not what it looks like, man. To me, it looks like you just stole my spot. No. Yeah, come here. Oh my god. I almost just died. Okay. I'm gonna need to end this video fast before, you know, he gets pissed off at me. Make sure to kiss that like button and subscribe today to join the Valentines. Yeah, that's about it. You think I'm about to beat your ass?